Okay, welcome to the October Grafana Agent Community Call. Today we are changing the format up a little bit to present on some existing topics, and then we will talk about some new slash upcoming content afterwards. If there's any questions, we are going to take those kind of at the end of this first slideshow, and it could be on anything, anything to do with the agent, related or unrelated to what we're discussing today. For this one, we're going to cover a bit of surface level of telemetry collectors and the Grafana agent. So you may want to learn something about at a deeper level. So feel free to let us know. Let me get set up. Okay, here we go. All right, so a little history on telemetry collection. So Prometheus originally adopted a pull model where it to collect metrics, where it reaches out to a slash metrics endpoint and pulls data into the Prometheus database. Eventually, a need arose to separate those responsibilities and for more complex pipelines. So this is where telemetry collectors come in. In the lower diagram, you can see with a telemetry collector, it's going to either pull the data from a telemetry source or receive it from a telemetry source that pushes the data. And then it is going to push the data into the telemetry database. So here's some of the many different collectors that are out there today. We can see Grafana Agent at the bottom, but there's a variety of these. This list is by no means exhaustive. Some of these are open source, some are closed source, and there's a variety. So not all of them are going to do the same exact stuff in the same way, but conceptually, they're trying to accomplish a lot of the same things. Okay, so when we're talking about telemetry, we're talking about different types of signals. So there's four types of signals that the Grafana agent will handle today. Some of the different collectors will handle maybe a subset of these or the same signals. So you've got metrics. So that's measurements of our systems tracked over time. That's probably the most widely used and well-known one. Then you've got logs, which is just a record of events from systems and applications. And then we get into really needing to get into the low level of traces. So represents the whole journey of a request or an action as it moves through all the nodes of a distributed system. So this allows us to see, one action as it jumps from system or application to application. And then a newer one here that we have is profiles. So this allows you to look at the workload for resources down to the line number in your code. So that gets you, if you're trying to figure out what's using all this memory, what line of code is executing and doing that, that's the level that you can go to. So how does it all work? So in order to make these collectors very customizable, we have to configure them. So everything that we look at today is customized via configuration. For the Grafana agent, excuse me, there are two ways to do so. There's the static mode, which is configured via YAML. This today is a hybrid of its own YAML schema and upstream configuration YAML schemas such as Prometheus, Promtail, and OTel. The alternative, newer way to do things with Grafana agent is using flow mode. So this is configured via River, which is an HCL inspired language, and it's used for building dynamic pipelines. So what do collectors do? What are they good at doing? So discover. So this is a category of things. So with discover, the collector will reach out to a different system and try to find signals that it is emitting. So some examples is, hey, I've got this collector and I want to point it at Kubernetes or Docker, Azure, EC2, and there's a lot of other ones where it will automatically find the signals that are there, and then it can pull those in and forward them onto a telemetry database. Exporter integration. So one of the things that's common in the telemetry space is to use exporters, but a collector can integrate exporters to be a one-stop shop. So if I need a variety of exporters, well, maybe I just install one thing instead of all those different exporters plus a collector. And some examples of common ones, we've got Node exporter, Windows, Blackbox, Postgres, but there are many more exporters to help easily collect those type of metrics built into the collector. Transform. So this is a big one that people like to use the collectors for, which is to modify the signals. So adding, this would mean adding additional labels to a metric or including internal labels that are not automatically forwarded on, but are sometimes useful. Dropping. So for example, with traces, it's not often practical to collect 100% of trace signals. So for example, you may want to drop and only include 1% of trace samples, and that gives you enough data to look into things. Modify. So this could be renaming a label inside a metric or modifying its values. And next up, we have forwarding. So this is, of course, right, the collector has to forward the signal to the database. The advantage of a collector is you can target a single telemetry database, but you may want to target multiple databases with the same signal, or you may want to route different signals to different databases. So with a collector, this all becomes possible. I say, yeah, but wait, there's more. What else? Yeah, go ahead, Matt. You have a question?
Yeah, for the forwarding, can you only forward to databases, or can you forward to other things?
I'm guessing you're giving me that as a leading question. I don't know offhand what you're going for. So.
Yeah, I didn't actually know either on the collector side. I assume you can forward to other collectors.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes. Look at yeah. You're one step ahead of me here, Matt. Yeah. So this slide right here, right? Collector to
Yep.
collector. So that's exactly right. So why would we want to do this? Say we have a common set of rules we want to use. We want a smaller credentialing surface area for talking to our metrics databases, or we need less external networking hops. So if I had telemetry collector 1 through 4, or more realistically 1 through n, uh, going to a metrics database on an external network, that can be a lot. So you may want to forward to a proxy collector in between, and then make that single hop to the database. Does that answer what you were going for, Matt?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. Just on the previous slide, everything was listed in databases, so just wanted to make sure that we could.
Yeah. Right. Excuse me. Additional features. So what other things do you kind of want to be aware of when it comes, specifically to the Grafana agent as you're getting into it? These are things that you might find useful. So just keep them in the back of your mind in case they're helpful. So with the Grafana agent using flow mode, there are components that are dedicated to making building telemetry pipelines easier, such as reading content from a file, HTTP or S3. What I mean by that is there are features available that you can configure that are not directly related to like scrape this signal, pass this signal, but they help you build your pipelines. So the easier that can be, the better. The ability to load configuration from multiple sources using modules such as within a file, HTTP or Git. So this is to say, as you get more complex pipelines, you may not want all of your configuration in one gigantic file, or you might have reusable bits of configuration that you want multiple collectors to use or agents to use, and in that case, this can help with that. Clustering mode. So for distributing load amongst multiple collectors. So as your load gets really high and you've got a lot of signals coming through your collectors, being able to distribute that load and scale horizontally is super important. And then we have a Helm chart available for running the agent in Kubernetes. And I've just got the catch-all there and more. There's other things out there, but I think those are the big hitters for somebody new to be aware of. And any questions? Got a small crew live today, so there may not be a ton. If there's any, throw in the messages or jump in out loud. Yeah, Pascal's.
What do you feel is the main reason to use agents over some agentless integration, like the Open Telemetry environment does, where it often sends the signals directly to a database instead of passing them through a collector?
Yeah, I think with the collector, the big thing is how much you can customize and have control over what's happening with the signals. I think that's probably the biggest thing, and then being able to separate some of those responsibilities. So if you're doing a bunch of transformation of the data, you may not want that to be on the application or the database responsible for doing that in terms of resourcing. So you're able to siphon that off.
Makes sense, thanks.
All right. I think we'll close that one there. And I will pause for a second for the next topic. Just get organized. All right, so next we're gonna take a look at a quick demo of static to flow migration tooling and what that means. Okay, let me share again. Let's go for the full screen because we're going to be jumping around just a little bit. This will be a little less formal in terms of a presentation, right? So feel free to jump in anytime as we go through this. So with the version 0.38 release that just went out, we shipped the first version of this migration tooling for going from the static mode to flow mode for the Grafana agent. This is where you can find the documentation on how to use the tooling, and that we're going to go over a little bit today. But what I want to do is do a little demo to just kind of show it in action, how it works. So let me grab these things over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is use this static mode YAML file that we start with, and we're going to translate this into a river file as well as run it just to kind of show how that works. Here's the commands we're going to go through. In order to run these commands, you have to set agent mode to flow, or alternatively, if you have the Grafana agent flow binary, you're good to go instead of using Grafana agent. So this first command, what it's going to do is just print out the river config to the command line. So let's see what that looks like. It's big. And this one I wanted to show has a combination of metrics config and logs config. There it is. So this is the configuration. So one way to use this tooling is to kind of just play around with it to see what it outputs. You could redirect this yourself to a file, but more likely if you want this to land somewhere, that'll be our second command. So let me grab that. So this command, the difference is we've got this output where we're saying, hey, put this in this promtail from river output. See what it puts out. Excellent. Okay. There it is. Good. So this is our new file that was just generated. in VS Code, I have the river extension, which I would definitely recommend for for looking at this. But let's see. So we've got, in this case, let's take a peek. So we've got the metrics, we've got a remote write, and we've got a couple things that we're scraping. There's 2 targets here, and then we've got the console. Oh, let me make this a little bigger. And then we've got a console service discovery config. So in our output, we can see the console service discovery. It's been prefixed with metrics, so we know it came from that metrics section. We've got the scrape with the 2 targets, and then both. This is forwarding to the remote write, and we're also scraping the discovery targets. So this has done the automatic configuration. What I would recommend is, once you run this thing, you take a look at what it output, try to understand it, and see what's going on in flow mode, because you're going to want to make modifications going forward to your config. So that'll help. Then in the log side, we also have, just for demo purposes, a console service discovery. We've got a relabel and some scraping that's going on as well. So that output, this discovery console component, a discovery relabel, some file matching, source file, Loki write, and some additional, a second discovery. So there's quite a bit of config, and for this demo, I don't want to go through all of it, but more just show how it works. So let's take a peek. The third option we have. So the third option here is to do the same thing with outputting, but we have a way to generate a diagnostic report that gives you a little bit of more insight into what happened during the conversion. So this will generate the same file, but it will also generate this text file that I've directed it to for a report. Okay, so here it is. So this gives you, like I said, a little more insight if there's any info diagnostics or warning diagnostics. I will mention that we're working on fine tuning it, so these 4 warning messages won't show in the future in this particular case. But it does kind of give you a warning that says, hey, take a look at your agent command line flags and make sure that they are set in your flow mode config. Because since we're converting configuration files, we're not, taking into account what command line flags you would have run the agent in static mode with. So it's worth checking that out. The final one we'll take a peek at is how to run it directly using a static mode configuration in flow mode. So we're going to run that same configuration. Now, I don't have all these things that it's looking for in scraping configured, but we're going to be able to see this running and see what the flow mode debug UI looks like. So it's worth checking out. Okay, there it is. And we can see some nice errors. Yep, can't retrieve and that's simply because I don't have these things configured and running. So let's take a look. There it is. So we took our static mode YAML and directly launched it in flow mode. And all those components that we saw in the configuration are here. I'm able to click into a component like this and see the things that it's scraping, see all the debug info, that all the benefits you get from using the flow mode are all here. All right, and I'm going to pause there with that and see if there's any questions. That's kind of what I want to show. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
What is our level of conversion that we have in terms of like how many things are done? Are there any glaring ones that aren't convertible or converted?
Oh yeah, yep. Thanks. Yeah. So right now it's kind of, we're converting as much as we possibly can, but we do have this section on limitations, some of which, and I'll go through, are limitations and some that we want to address with future releases. We didn't want to wait for 100% because then it's going to take longer to get it in your hands. So The couple that we're still working on actively, we've got integrations next, which is the static mode integrations V2, it's also known as. So if you're in static mode and you see this integrations next, those aren't convertible yet, as well as the traces config, which is not convertible yet. Those two we do plan to address. Agent management is a newer feature, and I'm not sure if we will, but I out in the wild, there's probably not a ton of usage in the open source community yet with that. And then there's some things where, like, there's no gRPC server to configure for flow mode. So, it'll show up as unsupported if you have that configured in your static mode. And that's just to kind of make sure if something is not being translated, we're giving you a heads up. And then there are some other limitations linked out for Prometheus and Promtail. I would say in general, it's pretty good. Where the limitations do exist, you will typically get an error, but you're able to bypass that error if you want to and still get an output of everything that could be converted. So if you are making the leap from static mode to flow mode, this is still a good starting place, even if it doesn't perfectly match your use case, so that you can get a lot of your flow components set up, start playing with it in a development type environment or test environment and take it from there. All right. Any other questions? No problem. All right. So, especially with this cough, we'll wrap here, I guess, with a little bit early today, unless there's anything else anybody on the call wants to discuss before we close out, and hopefully we'll keep moving forward with the new format and creating new content. I posted some of the ideas we're thinking in the community Slack channel for future ones, like meta monitoring with the Grafana agent, practical pipelines, the Grafana agent, and Kubernetes, different focus topics that we are hoping to do going forward. But we're open to additional or different topics as well. So with that, thanks everybody. Oh yeah, go ahead, Matt.
That was just me clicking on a button. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Hit the stop button.